tell you the job that we was working at. Like always, I don't say the name of the job because of personal reasons. I don't want anyone to ever feel like I'm talking about them, so I just don't tell the name of the job. Just know it was a fast food restaurant. So I'm gonna get straight into the story. Sorry, y'all. So I'm just gonna start when we were younger. Me and my cousin, she doesn't need a name because she doesn't play a big part, but me and my cousin had to, well, I was like 13 and she was like 11, because we're 2 years apart, so we both had to go to court. We both had to go to court because my cousin, which is my auntie's daughter, so scratch that, my auntie, my aunt, had been having some issues where someone was messing with some of her property, her home property, so she had to go to court about it, and me and my cousin got to miss school because we were witnesses to what had been going on. So I was excited because we got to miss school and we went to court. And when we got to court, I remember seeing this guy with little bitty braids to the back that stopped at the top of his ears. He's gonna kill me for that. But anyway, he was there, and I remember looking at my cousin. I was like, I know him, cause remind you, I grew up in a town, a small town, and when I got in about the 5th grade, me and my mom and dad moved to another town. So I knew people from the small town, but I moved away. So if that makes sense, when I seen my husband in court when we were 13, I remember him because he stayed in the small town that I was living in before we moved away. We didn't move far. We moved to like 20 minutes away. But my cousin also still stayed in that small town. So that's why we were at court at the small town where my husband was at. I hope this makes sense. Okay, let me explain it again. I used to stay in a small town, and when I got in 5th grade, we moved 20 minutes away from that small town. I still had family that lived in that small town on my dad's side, and where we moved, I had family on my mom's side that lived where I lived, 20 minutes away. So when me and my cousin had to go to court for my aunt as witnesses, I had to go back to that small town because every other weekend I would go to this small town anyway to go stay over my cousin's house. So while we were at the small town going to court, I seen the guy with those small braids in his head, and I told my cousin, I said, I know him. And she's like, you don't know him? I guess she's thinking like, you haven't even lived here in years, you don't know him. And I'm like, yes, I do know him. I remember him. We were in 3rd grade together. And my cousin was still like, you don't know him? And I was like, yes, I do. I think his name is my husband's name. I'm not going to put his name on social media. So my cousin's like, yeah, whatever. So the judge ended up calling my husband's name, which I'm not going to say why he was there because it's irrelevant. We were teenagers. It's irrelevant why he was there. It wasn't no life-threatening situations. So when they called his name, my cousin looked at me and I looked at her and I was like, I told you I knew him. And I was like, he was in my 3rd grade class. And then she was like, oh, okay. That was the end of it. I seen him. He didn't see me. And that was the end of it. I never thought anything else about it. He was just a guy that I knew from elementary school. Fast forward to me losing my job at Wendy's. My dad, he does 2 jobs. My dad has 2 jobs. that's in the back making food, which was mainly guys, they would stop and they would bring us ice. Now, most of the time, the guys were lazy. They wouldn't bring us ice. We would have to ask multiple times for them to bring us some ice. But my husband, who wasn't my husband at the time, every time I would call for ice, he would bring it, no problem. Whenever he was there, you didn't have to worry about keep asking because he would come right away. He would come right away and bring the ice. So when he would bring the ice, he would say little stuff to me, and I would say little stuff to him. I can't remember word for word what we would say to each other, but he would flirt with me, and I would flirt with him. We would say little things, typical flirt things. And I never really thought nothing of it because, we were at work, you get bored and you just talk to the people there, maybe flirt a little bit, I didn't think anything of it. I never knew that he really liked me. I just knew that we would flirt from time to time. So one day, I came into work and I clocked in and they told me that I was going to back window where you take the money. So you know how when you first come in, you're like, oh, I don't want to be here. Like, let's get this shift over with. So I came in and not thinking anything of it. They tell me they're going to put me in back window. So they're waiting to get me a chore. This is before I became a manager, remind you, because I did end up becoming a manager at this job. So they told me that they were going to put me in back window. So I had to wait on them to get me a register. So I went in the break room and was kind of getting myself together, probably sending last minute text messages and whatever else I was doing. But I was in the break room just waiting to start working. And when I was in the break room, my husband, then he wasn't anything to me, but anyway, he walked in the break room and I'm like, this guy, and he's like, I think he asked me, could he ask me something or something like that? And I was like, yeah. He was like, do you have a boyfriend? And then I'm like caught off guard, so I'm kind of just like standing there for a minute. And he's like, if you do, that's okay. I guess he thought that I did because I was kind of just standing there not responding, but I was kind of caught off guard. So then I'm like, no, I don't have a boyfriend. He was like, okay, well, can I get your number? And I'm like, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just like, he was like, well, can I give you my number? I guess he could see that I really didn't want to give him my number. So he was like, can I give you? I guess he's saying that I didn't want to give him my number. So he was like, can I give you my number? And I was like, yeah, that's cool. So at the job that I worked at, you couldn't wear your own jacket. You had to buy a jacket out of the workbook, the ordering book, like the shoes and the jacket. You had to order those. So it's like April and I got on a jacket because I'm always cold. So I have on my jacket or whatever. And eventually they come and get me to get in the back window. So I go to the back window and I start working. I'm taking orders. I'm passing the money out and everything, giving out the change. Hold on, y'all. Let me readjust myself for a second. and I'm just like, okay, I'm not gonna do it. So at the time, in my mind, I'm thinking I have no intention on texting him or calling him because me and my friend talked about it. We went deeper in the conversation, me and my friend did, but I'm not gonna go into every detail about why she told me not to, but she basically was telling me not to. So I decided that I'm not gonna do it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do it. So I work my shift. I eventually get off work, and mind you, I never said this, but remember when I said I lived in a small town, then I moved away, 20 minutes away? Well, I forgot to say that the new job, the new fast food job, was back in my old town. So I would drive every day 20 minutes away from the town I lived in back to my old town to work. So when I would get ready to go home, me and Hazel would talk on the phone while I took my 20-minute drive back home every day, because Hazel lived in the town that I lived in. So I would call her and we would talk on the phone. So we were talking on the phone on my drive home, and once I made it home, we got back on the subject about my husband. And I'm like, you really think I shouldn't talk to him? And she was like, I mean, that's my opinion. She was like, but you can do whatever you want to do. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do. So I'm just like, sorry y'all, I'm sorry making all this noise, but I'm like, how about I give you the number, because by then we had house phones. So I end up calling Hazel on my house phone, and I think I called her on her house phone, and then you talking on the house phone. So I was like, how about I give you the number and you use your cell phone to text him while we're on the phone, and you tell me what he says, and if you think he's a good guy, like if you think I should talk to him, because neither one of us knew him. Like, I knew him from 3rd grade, but I mean, we're adults now. You don't really know a person in 3rd grade, and I knew him from work, but I still didn't just know him outside of work. Like, if I should talk to him or not. He was sweet, don't get me wrong, he was sweet, but I only knew him at work. I didn't know his outside work life. So my friend was like, okay, that's a good idea. I'll text him. I'll tell you you'll tell me what to say, and I'll figure out the vibes. So I give her the number, and she texts him, and she's like, okay, he texts back, and I'm like, okay, what did he say? And I think I told her to say like, hey, or something, and then she texted him, and then she was like, he texts back, and she was like, I think, you might be a good guy. I was like, already? You think that already? And she was like, well, yeah, because he automatically knew who you were when I texted him and said, hey. And I was like, what? How do you know? She was like, well, he said, hey, and then he said your name. And she was like, he didn't spell it right, but he said your name, which lets me know, like, he can't be talking to too many girls if he automatically knew who it was that was texting him. And I was like, okay, that's smart, which it doesn't necessarily mean that, but so she went back and forth texting him for a little bit while I was on the phone, and then eventually I was like, okay, I'll just text him from my phone now so that you don't have to keep doing this. She was like, okay. So I texted him and I said, hey, this is my real number. I was using my friend's phone to text you at first because I wasn't ready to give you my number. So he still thought that was me texting him, just texting him from my friend number. In reality, that was my friend texting him. So me and him, me and Hazel eventually get off the phone, and me and him continue to text, and then we get on the phone. And when we get on the phone, it's like he's telling me a little bit about him, I'm telling him a little bit about me, and we're just talking and talking and talking. So we eventually get off the phone, and a couple of days go by, like maybe way of starting the conversation. And the rest is history. Like, once we pick back up after that week of not talking, we pick back up and we start talking. And he's like, why you didn't text me? I'm like, why you didn't text me? And then, we ended up almost 13 years later. This is us. We've been together in April we'll make 13 years we've been married. April will make 5 years of us being married and 13 years of us being together. No, I'm sorry, that's wrong. I'm wrong. April will make 13 years of us being together. June will make 5 years of us being married. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. I don't think there's any much more to say. Like, after about a year, we ended up moving in together. I would go over his house every day when I would get off work. Once we actually got together, we were like together. I would go over his house every day after work, and we were like tied to each other's hip. Like, I was always at his house, and we were at each other's house. I was at his house every day for like the whole year. Every now and then I would miss a day, but mainly after I would get off work, or if I didn't have to go to work, I was at his house. He lived with his mom at the time, and I would always go over his house. And eventually, after being together for a year, we decided to just go ahead and get our own place, because I was traveling 20 minutes every day to work or to his house, and 20 minutes back home every day to either come to work or to come see him. I was coming 20 minutes every single day. So eventually we ended up moving together, and now I stay back in the small town that I was in when I grew up, when I was younger. We ended up moving in together in this small town because, like I said, I have family on my dad's side in this small town, but the town my mom and dad live in is only 20 minutes away, maybe even 15 minutes away. So I still go see my mom and dad. But that's basically the story of how me and my husband got together. Like, that's my best friend.